everybody, welcome back. Well, there are some interviews that I can avoid and not talk about, but this one is not going to be one of them. I honestly was in shock. I knew he'd put out an arrogant, entitled statement. Of course that was going to happen the moment he lost that court case. I think he genuinely thought that he was going to win it. But one thing that has definitely shocked me is the number of people, admittedly it's a lot smaller than it ever was before, but the people that were saying, oh, it near enough made me cry watching Harry. He looked like he needed a hug. It's clear that there's fault on both sides. It's time with the King's cancer that they should welcome Harry with open arms. Let bygones be bygones. Did they watch a completely different interview here to watch what I and the rest of you guys watched? But it's that little boy that walked behind his mother's coffin. No, it's not. This is a 40-year-old, arrogant, entitled, smarmy, nasty, vindictive piece of work. So aside from the new round of venomous accusations from an increasingly paranoid Harry, he waffles on throughout the interview that there is now an evil, nefarious organisation underneath the royal umbrella called the royal household. They are hell-bent on ensuring that history repeats itself. Now, the BBC set this up with Meredith Maines. She is Archewell's Chief Communications Officer. She took over from Ashley back in March, and I can only presume she's the brains behind this more recent and equally ridiculous interview. I'd imagine she will be having her pink slip shortly because Meghan got an awful lot of backlash, but it's nothing compared to the amount of backlash that Harry has received. On the plus side, we've been told that Harry will never bring Meghan to the UK ever again, so I can imagine there's a collective cheer. Now, the interview was only meant to last 10 minutes. He apparently waffled on for over half an hour. I can only presume, my guessing is, he always set up the interview to perhaps still attack his family, but he thought he was going to win the court case, hence why he was only booked for 10 minutes. It was going to be a victory lap, another arrogant statement of justice being served. Well, it didn't work out the way he wanted, so now the entire system is corrupt and he's made demands for the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and our Home Secretary to investigate because it is an establishment stitch-up full of corruption and meddling royal family members. Everybody in this interview is at fault, whether it's the British public, the British media, his family, Ravek, the former government. Honestly, he is losing the plot. And Harry has certainly pulled out all the stops to ensure maximum coverage. This is just as bad as the Oprah interview. He has no regrets, despite the fact that his grandparents have gone to their grave with all of the last accusations he levelled over their heads. I believe that he's doing exactly the same to his father. So Harry starts by expressing his shock that he lost the case and then starts smirking as he talks about how he was told it was never going to be won. He's hinting at an injustice straight away off the bat. He says it's now impossible to bring his family to the UK, but he says that he puts himself at risk when he does come to the UK for charitable visits, but he will continue because he has a life of public service. Oh, what a hero he is. He comes to the UK to spend time for a PR opportunity with his very few charities that he still supports. Someone give him a medal up on stage next time when he's presenting the World Child Awards for his bravery. He loves the UK. He said he always has done. It's his birthplace and he's sad that his children won't come here. He said that his security needed to be higher than Queen Elizabeth II. Yes, he was in more danger than the Queen herself. And when he stepped back, he was reduced to the lowest security given to anybody else. First of all, you quit your job, you don't get to keep the perks. And secondly, I think that the general public have the lowest security out there in the world, including men and women that have served in the armed forces for many years. I did a decade in the army. Everybody knows, Harry, you got treated completely differently to everybody else. He was heavily protected. He had his own squad around him protecting him. He had a team of Gurkhas that would sacrifice themselves if Harry was at risk. Do you think every other soldier has that? that? Every other person in the Navy and the RAF? No. But do they have security when they retire from the armed forces? No. So him constantly bringing up his decade in the military is, at this point, it's completely moot. Harry still can't grasp that actions have consequences. He quit his job. He was told that they would take security. He still chose to take the path that he did. He said that the other side have won, keeping him unsafe. But he doesn't clarify who the other side are. But given this entire interview is about attacking his family and talking about the evil, nefarious organisation known as the royal household, one can presume that he means yet again his family and the courtiers. He said that he has all of the truth and the knowledge from the case, and what he uncovered was his worst fears. But naturally, he cannot reveal those details other than the royal household controls and sits on Ravik, implying that his family are deliberately endangering his and his wife and his children's life to punish him. He said he never asked his father to intervene, but he asked him to step out of the way to allow experts to do their jobs. What that is he is implying that the king blocked his risk assessments and that the royals influence who gets security. He makes it very clear throughout this interview that his family do not want him to have security, and his family, by making those decisions, mean that they want him or his wife or his children to get hurt or worse as punishment for leaving the evil institution. Harry, throughout the interview, talks about, I'm a royal, I was born a royal, I will always be a royal, thus I should be treated like a royal. But what he's really saying is, I want to be treated exactly the same as William. His jealousy just oozes out of him. It's completely unparalleled, and it makes him such an angry, bitter and vengeful person. No wonder Prince William will never allow him near his family ever again. Harry says because he left a life of public office, he should get lifetime taxpayer-funded protection. I'm sorry, you are not a former president. Harry was only a working royal for 4 years himself. People forget this. Harry is admittedly saying in this interview, I gave 35 years of public service. Harry, you're 40? I am certain that you were not serving the country when you were 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old. You know, it's absolutely crazy, but it's lines like this that he comes out with, and I'm like, he's clearly becoming more unstable as he gets older. As for his demands for the 24/7 security, as I said, even senior working royals do not have that. The King and the Queen have it, William and Catherine and their children have it. All of the other royals get protection, well not all of them, the senior working royals, royals that attend work engagements on behalf of the Crown, they get it at those engagements. Outside of those engagements, they do not have it. But this is where it's even more laughable. Princess Anne survived an actual armed kidnapping attempt where several people were shot. She held the door shut when the gunman was telling her to open the door and get out so he could kidnap her, and she said not bloody likely. She has always refused to have a constant stream of security around her. He confused the hell out of me at one point because he says that he and Meghan were stopped from being working royals, and I was like, what? You were stopped from being working royals. They wanted to remain. Oh yes, that was the story, wasn't it? Before Oprah, when they changed that story to say it was a freedom flight and they escaped with their lives, that they would have both died if they'd have stayed under the control of the evil institute. I mean, they were practically prisoners that just managed to escape at that last moment with their babe in their arms. But now we're back to, we wanted to stay serving the Queen. Honestly, no, we wanted to do what Meghan's doing now, merch off of the titles and make lots of money. Harry says the British press campaigned to have their security removed, right? Yes, the evil media did. Apparently, the only reason the British taxpayer don't want to pay for him and Meghan is because the British media inflated the figures by 18 or 19 times. No, Harry, we don't want to pay for you because you betrayed your grandparents' queen, country, you've gone on to betray the king, the next king. You have shown unbelievable amounts of disloyalty loyalty to everybody that loved him. You called us all racist and said we were unwelcome into your wife, tried to destroy the Queen's legacy, calling it the Empire 2.0. This country is on its knees with some of the highest taxes in the world. People are struggling every day to keep their jobs, to be able to put food on the table. Why on earth would we want so much as a penny to go pay for him and his wife, who are multi-millionaires, living it up like celebrities in another country? He says, why wouldn't people be happy to pay for him after his 35 years service? He says that he cannot be treated as a private citizen, and then in the next breath starts talking about how some private citizens even get taxpayer funded protection. The thing is, everybody knows now that Harry does get police protection. 28 days notice is all he has to give. But I've got a suggestion. Just be a civilian in America. Renounce your princely title. Renounce your dukedom. Renounce, your children being a prince and princess. And then you can have that extra security threat taken away from you. Go one better. Say, I want to be taken and my children off the line of succession. There you go. That would definitely help protect your family, Harry. Of course, I think we all can gather that there will be no chance of that. He then again mentions how he scored higher on this danger list than his very own grandmother, Queen Elizabeth. Yes, he needed more protection than the Queen, than his father, than his brother. And you can tell that he really means this because the lines in his face get deeper, his eyes become more beady. And he gets even angrier when he's asked about his case-by-case basis of security. As I said, he has to give 28 days notice by the interviewer. There is a real burning resentment in him, and you can almost see it oozing out of his pores. But he admits that he does get it, but it's completely insufficient. It makes it too hard for him to visit his friends in the UK. He goes on to say that security is used to control the royal family members. It imprisons them and it deters them from being able to choose a different life. I think Zara Tindall, Peter Phillips, I think of Princesses Eugenie and Beatrice, who have got their own careers as well. Then I think of Lady Louise, she's at university. No one has been hindered or imprisoned apart from you and your wife, which makes all of us realise that you are in fact the problem. He throws a big grenade at his dad and he says he can only come to the UK safely if he's invited. His father has the control and ability and could have resolved his security issue, not by intervening, but by allowing experts to do their job. Yes, he is again implying that his father was the man that stopped Harry receiving additional risk assessments, which according to him has changed greatly since 2020 anyway, because his security threat has increased. Well, of course it has, because when he did Spare, which was released in 2023, he bragged about killing 25 members of an organisation whilst he was out in Afghanistan. I have to be careful, YouTube gets very touchy on the subject. But what on earth did he think that was going to do? Which makes me think that, did he do that on purpose? So he could use it in the court case. The same as the staged, come on, it was staged in my opinion, the New York car chase. There was no high-speed New York car chase. Nobody saw it. Nobody heard it. It's just something that Harry did, like when he left, I think it was a charity event when he was in the UK, he got chased and there was a video clip released showing that nobody was chasing Harry as he sped off down the road. Harry has set up a lot of these stunts to increase his own threat level, but only a complete moron would do that with, like I said, with Afghanistan. I mean, that really is endangering his own family, but that was his stupidity, no one else's, and it shouldn't be the taxpayer's responsibility because he runs his mouth off. In another bit where he does really show himself to be slightly unstable here, right? He says it is the responsibility, well, the fault of the previous government. So far, he's blamed the media, his father, Ravek, it's honestly hard at this point to keep up, and now the government. It was an establishment stitch-up. He says Ravek has no legal governance which allows them to abandon national security processes, pretty much saying that they are a law unto themselves and they need a legal investigation because of the royal household's involvement. At one point, I nearly choked. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was lying in bed with my cup of tea. I had to put it down when I was watching this. But this bit, when he turned around and said that he doesn't want to fight anymore, he doesn't want any more battles, as he's giving this interview, literally throwing grenade after grenade after grenade at his family again. He said he doesn't want to battle with his family anymore, and it's a family dispute. But then quickly goes on to say, if anything were to happen to me, my wife, or my father's grandchildren, look where the responsibility lies. There's a duty of care thrown out of the window. The fact that he said my father's grandchildren, you know, he is really, as I said, throwing some big serious accusations at the royals and the royal household here. His life was devalued. He doesn't want history to repeat itself. Obviously, he means his mother. But where he doubles down and makes it sound oh so much more sinister, he said he's discovered that some people do want history to repeat itself. But when the reporter says, "Can you tell me who, Harry? That's quite a statement." Yes, you've basically said there's people in the royal household, maybe even referencing his own family, that want history to repeat itself. Of course, I won't disclose that information. It's exactly what they did with the royal racist. It's because it puts a blanket across everybody so people can draw their own conclusions. It's pretty obvious, considering this entire interview is him blaming his family, the royal household. He's leveling these again at the same people. But as I said, without naming one particular person, it covers all of them. He rejects the interviewer's question that perhaps his security was just taken from him because he quit his job. He doesn't represent the country, the crown, the king. He doesn't represent anyone other than himself now. Harry says it's irrelevant whether he has a role or not for the security that he needs. Honestly, he couldn't sound more arrogant and entitled if he tried. Harry is just throwing one big tantrum and throwing these accusations because he didn't get his own way. This is an adult toddler constantly having a temper tantrum, holding their breath and stamping their feet until they get their own way. And he's not getting his own way. And I think this is why he's getting more and more angry, more and more paranoid and delusional. He says there are threats that the public don't know about that he, of course, can't reveal. But he says that other people do know about them and they still refuse to protect him. Obviously, this whole interview is him blaming his family, so one can only presume he means that it's his family or the royal household. The press is at fault for inciting hatred towards Meghan and their children. Oh, come on, nobody hates your children, Harry. 99% of the population couldn't care less if we never saw your children. Considering you're that paranoid about their safety and security, you think that you stop your wife posting all of these pictures online. Just because she stuck a flower in front of their face or stuck a cake bowl or whatever else it is that she uses, we know what the children look like. We know their height, we know their hair colour, we know exactly what they look like because they've also revealed other video clips, voice clips. They've given footage to Oprah and to Netflix. We know what the children look like. If Harry is really that concerned, then take your children off of social media like you keep preaching at other people to do. Another moment where I'm really grateful I put my cup of tea down for was when he said that he can forgive his family. And he said, I can forgive my father. I can forgive my stepmother. He might as well said it like that. The whole shift in him. And I can forgive my brother. Oh yeah, he sounds like Scar in The Lion King. But this isn't a Disney movie at the end of the day. But he is definitely coming across as the villain in this whole sad and sorry saga. He said whilst he can forgive his family's involvement, but doesn't clarify involvement in what exactly, he says that he cannot forgive them for the decision made in 2020. It wasn't the Queen or the King or Prince William. It wasn't their decision. It was an independent department. The Queen did say when they first went to Canada that she wanted them to have the security, but this was when they hadn't done Oprah and she was giving them a year to decide. She pleaded with them not to leave, but their minds were made up. Their minds were made up back in 2017 and 18. Our poor, dearly beloved late Queen didn't realise that she had the biggest con job done on her by a grandson that she absolutely adored. And it's clear by this this interview that Harry still has no regrets despite what he did to her and his grandfather in their final years. He says that the security was used to try and trap him and Meghan so that they didn't leave. But when that didn't work, he doesn't understand why they wouldn't protect his family. He said that they knew that they were putting him at risk and says, my dad, he actually says, my dad, why do you not want to ensure our safety? Honestly, and you know, the amount of, I would say, not uneducated people, but people that haven't followed this saga, that don't believe that Harry gets security, the people that are saying, oh, the king wants Harry dead. That's what Harry has done. He's stirred up all of this again. That the king, who is going through cancer, who needs to remain as stress-free as possible, he's done all of these accusations, which allows people to run riot with speculation. It kicks it all up again. How could he do that? And in the same breath, I want a reconciliation, but my dad won't speak to me. Well, if he was going to speak to you, Harry, I think you've possibly finally burnt that bridge. Harry does make, I would call, a slip up when he says, when they took away my security, they also signalled to other countries around the world that I should not be protected. So this proves what many of us have been speculating. It was always about getting his internationally protected person status back. This is what he was fighting for. He is fighting for not just the UK to pay for him, America to pay for him. He would have full taxpayer-funded security, the top police protection given to him, like we saw in Nigeria and Colombia, all around the world for his and his wife's jaunts, even if it is just to go to see a play in Manhattan. Harry says 100% if he got his security back, it would repair the damage with his family. Would it now, Harry? It goes to show that he's completely deluded here, and he, as I said, he's got no self-awareness. This entire interview, he's blaming his family, he's blaming the government, he's blaming the press, he's blaming the British public. It's unclear who exactly he thinks is at fault, but one thing that is very clear, it's always and will always be someone else's fault. He admits that some members of his family will never forgive him for making a book and a lot of things. But before you think to yourself, oh, he's finally having a moment of reflection, you will be sorely disappointed. Because this is where he says, I would love a reconciliation. There's no point in continuing this fight anymore. Life is precious and I don't know how much longer my father has left. My father won't speak to me. Implying anything to do with his father's health was selfish. He knows about the speculation and the dramas that will cause about the king's health, who, whilst he has been open about the fact that he still has cancer, it's an ongoing condition that he is managing, it is still not Harry's place to talk about the king's health. It's no one's place to talk about the king's health other than the king himself when he wants to reveal details to the public. No wonder the king can't trust Harry even to have a telephone conversation with him. It's clearly obvious that Harry would sell any bit of information about his family that he can. As I said, the money is drying up. That's why I believe he and Meghan are playing this game of poke the bear. Towards the end of the interview, he then talks about how he's learnt from the First Nations in Canada that truth and reconciliation are important, that reconciliation can't come without truth. I mean, everyone has had it with this selfish, whiny man-child's truth. As I said, it's not the actual truth, it's just his version of the truth, which is completely, at this point, every time he opens his mouth, it's a different version of events. There is not a single moment in that interview where he takes responsibility for anything that he and Meghan have done, the choices that they have made. Someone else is always to blame. It's another bunch of accusations levelled at his family who he knows cannot fight back in the same way. But they don't need to fight back, do they? I think the titles should be completely taken at this point. I think now Harry is at a point where he's accusing the government of things. He's asking our current Prime Minister to get involved. I think that this is grounds to having the dukedom taken. This should go to Parliament. Harry is becoming more and more unstable. But as for all of the things that he said, I mean, this man is honestly unbelievable. Only Harry could talk about the fact that his father is in ill health and he has cancer, yet somehow he is the victim. My dad could be dying but feels sorry for me as I accuse him of deliberately endangering my life, my wife's life, and my children, his own grandchildren, just to hit it home harder with the audience. This is what Harry and Meghan do. It is another performative interview designed to trash the royal family. These two really do deserve each other. Whilst I do not think that this interview has done any harm to the royal family in the view of the public, because I think people have seen it, they've heard it all before from Harry and Meghan, it's made Harry look worse rather than the royal family. I can imagine that it's actually still hurt his father and reopened, it's ripped the scab off of some old wounds. It has with the public, because it's reminded the public, especially with Meghan's interview, what they actually did to this amazing woman and what they continue to do to the king and to the royals. They are handling it the best way, cutting off that toxic arm. Here is the proof that it completely needed to be done, and I hope that the king continues to ignore the calls from his son. And I'm pretty certain after this that he's got no hope of the king ever going, yes, hi Harry, it's me. But all jokes aside, well, all seriousness aside of this awful interview, one would think that if Harry had a tiny little brain cell, he'd go, BBC interview, oh, my uncle, that didn't work out so well for him. And he might have had second thoughts. Those two were definitely cut from the same cloth. And much like Andrew, who came across as dislikable as Harry did, arrogant and completely foolish, these two are honestly the same as each other. They've done exactly the same thing. Because as the saying goes, sometimes it's better to remain silent and be thought a fool rather than speak and remove all doubt. These two are two peas in a pod. So guys, that's it for me on this video. Tell me your thoughts. I bet you've got some strong ones, and I will see you soon. Take care for now. Bye.